The stock market is near all-time highs. The unemployment rate is near a 50-year low. The government tells you the economy is strong. The media tells you to be optimistic. But you feel it, don't you? That nagging feeling in the pit of your stomach. That sense that something is deeply wrong. The feeling that no matter how hard you work, you are falling further and further behind. This is not your imagination. This is not a personal failure. This is a national crisis. A crisis that is being ignored by the powerful, denied by the media, and misunderstood by the public. It is the silent depression, and it is already here. What is a depression? We have been taught to think of it in terms of the 1930s. Breadlines, soup kitchens, mass unemployment. But a depression is not just a set of economic statistics. It is a state of being. It is a loss of hope, a loss of faith in the future, a feeling that the system is rigged and that the American dream is dead. And by that measure, we are in a depression today. Look at the evidence. For the first time in American history, a generation of young people is projected to be poorer than their parents. The cost of housing has become so astronomical that home ownership, the cornerstone of the American dream, is out of reach for millions. We have an epidemic of deaths of despair, suicide, drug overdose, alcoholism. These are not the signs of a healthy and prosperous society, and the official statistics are a lie. The unemployment rate is low, they say, but they don't count the millions of people who have given up looking for work. They don't count the millions of people who are working part-time jobs because they can't find full-time work. They don't count the millions of people who are working jobs that don't pay a living wage. The labor force participation rate, the percentage of the population that is actually working, is still lower than it was before the 2008 financial crisis. They say inflation is under control, but as we have discussed, that is a statistical fiction. The real cost of living, the cost of the things you actually need to live, housing, food, healthcare, education, has been soaring for decades. Your wages are not keeping up. You are working harder to afford less. This is the reality of the silent depression. And who is to blame? The same culprits as always. The Federal Reserve, which has created a series of bubbles and busts that have enriched the wealthy and impoverished the middle class. The politicians who have sold out the American worker in favor of globalization and corporate profits. And the media, which has served as a propaganda arm for the establishment, telling you to ignore your own lying eyes and to believe in their fantasy of a strong economy. This is not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. This is a class issue. It is an issue of the ruling class versus everyone else, a ruling class that has rigged the system in its favor. A ruling class that has insulated itself from the consequences of its own disastrous policies. A ruling class that lives in a bubble of wealth and privilege, completely disconnected from the reality of life for ordinary Americans. They don't see the struggle, they don't feel the pain, they don't understand the despair. They look at the stock market and they see success. They look at the GDP numbers and they see progress. They don't see the human cost. They don't see the broken families, the shattered dreams, the lost hope. But you see it, you live it, you feel it. The silent depression is not a statistic. It is your life. It is the anxiety you feel when you look at your bills. It is the fear you feel when you think about your future. It is the anger you feel when you see the rich getting richer while you are struggling to get by. And the first step to fighting back is to name the problem, to call it what it is, to break the silence, to say, no, the economy is not strong. No, I am not optimistic. I am living in a depression. This is not a call for despair. It is a call for anger, for righteous anger. The anger that fuels revolutions. The anger that says, we will not be silent anymore. We will not be invisible anymore. We will not be victims anymore. The silent depression ends when we decide to end it. It ends when we stop believing their lies and start fighting for our own truth. It ends when we take back our country from the corrupt elite that has stolen it from us. Let's dig deeper into the numbers, because the numbers tell a story. The story of a nation in decline. The story of a generation that has been betrayed. They tell you that the median household income is rising, but they don't adjust it for the true cost of living. If you adjust for the real inflation we talked about, the median household income has been stagnant for 30 years. 30 years of running in place, 30 years of no progress. They tell you that the poverty rate is falling, but they set the poverty line at an absurdly low level, a level that no one can actually live on. If you were to set the poverty line at a more realistic level, you would find that tens of millions of Americans are living in poverty, people who are working full-time jobs, people who are doing everything right, and still they cannot afford the basic necessities of life, and the debt. The debt is the silent killer of our economy, not just the government debt, but the household debt, mortgage debt, credit card debt, student loan debt, auto loan debt. We are a nation of debtors. We are living on borrowed time and borrowed money, and the day of reckoning is coming. The day when the credit cards are maxed out, when the loans come due, when the house of cards collapses. This is not an accident. It is the result of a deliberate policy, a policy of financialization, a policy of turning our economy from one that produces things to one that trades paper. We have outsourced our manufacturing base to China. We have allowed our infrastructure to crumble. We have turned our universities into hedge funds with classrooms attached. We have prioritized the interests of Wall Street over the interests of Main Street. And we are now reaping the consequences. The silent depression is not just an economic crisis. It is a spiritual crisis. It is a crisis of meaning, a crisis of purpose. We have been taught to measure our worth by the size of our bank account, by the brand of our car, by the square footage of our house. We have been taught to be consumers, not citizens. We have been taught to be spectators, not participants. We have been taught to be alone, not together, and the result is a society that is sick, a society that is atomized, a society that is drowning in loneliness and despair. The solution to the silent depression is not a new government program. It is not a new stimulus check. It is a spiritual renewal, a return to the values that once made this country great, the values of hard work, of family, of community, of faith, of self-reliance. It is a return to the idea that a good life is not about what you have, but about who you are. It is a return to the idea that a strong nation is not built on debt and speculation, but on production and savings. It is a return to the idea that freedom is not a gift from the government, but a right from God. This is a long and difficult road. It is a road that will require courage and sacrifice and a willingness to fight. But it is the only road that leads to a better future. The first step on that road is to open our eyes, to see the silent depression for what it is, to reject the lies of the establishment, and to find our voice, to speak our truth, to break the silence. Let's talk about the youth, the generation that was born into this crisis, the generation that has never known a world of economic stability and opportunity. They are the canaries in the coal mine, and they are dying. They are graduating from college with crippling levels of student loan debt, a debt that cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. They are entering a job market that offers them precarious, low-wage gig economy work. They are living at home with their parents into their 20s and 30s because they cannot afford to move out. They are delaying marriage. They are delaying having children because they do not have the financial security to start a family. This is a demographic and civilizational catastrophe. A society that does not offer a future to its young is a society that has no future. And yet, the response from the establishment is a mixture of indifference and contempt. They are told that they are lazy, that they are entitled, that they are not working hard enough. They are told to stop buying avocado toast. It is a cruel and insulting joke, and it reveals the deep chasm that has opened up between the generations. A chasm that has been created by the policies of the past 40 years. The baby boomers, who inherited a prosperous and growing America, have pulled up the ladder behind them. They have voted for politicians who have enriched them at the expense of their own children and grandchildren. They have loaded up the nation with debt, and they have left the bill to the next generation. This is not to say that every individual baby boomer is to blame, but as a generation, they have been the beneficiaries of a system that is now collapsing, and they have been, for the most part, unwilling to confront the reality of that collapse. They have been content to enjoy their comfortable retirements, funded by a rising stock market and a rising housing market, while the world outside their gated communities falls apart. This intergenerational conflict is one of the most dangerous and tragic aspects of the silent depression. It pits parent against child, old against young. It destroys the bonds of family and community, and it is a classic tactic of a ruling class that seeks to divide and conquer. They want us to fight each other so that we do not fight them, but the young are starting to wake up. They are starting to realize that they have been sold a lie. They are starting to reject the false promises of the establishment. They are starting to look for alternatives. They are finding them in the ideas of sound money, of decentralization, of localism, of self-sufficiency. They are the generation that will build the new world on the ruins of the old. This is a source of hope, a glimmer of light in the darkness. The silent depression is a terrible and painful thing, but it is also a cleansing fire. It is a process that is burning away the dead wood of a corrupt and decadent system. It is forcing us to rediscover the things that are real, the things that are true, the things that are lasting. This is not a time for despair. It is a time for building new institutions, new communities, new ways of living. It is a time for a great turning, a turning away from the false promises of globalism and central planning, and a turning towards the timeless truths of freedom, family, and faith. The road ahead will be long and hard, but for the first time in a long time there is a road that leads out of the silent depression and towards a better future.